What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Wednesday, September 16th, 2020, middle of the weekday, hump day, starting that long, slow glide down to Powwow on a Friday and another crazy weekend, followed by another even crazier week here. We have a lot to talk about today. We're going to do news for a while, then we're going to open up the phone lines for your comments, questions, observations, and opinions. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials and keeping us out of trouble. So let's get right on into it. Right now, Hurricane Sally, well, actually, it's down to a tropical storm, but it had strengthened back to a Cat 2 when it made landfall on the Gulf Coast. Right now, they're saying it's 70-mile-an-hour winds, 100-mile-an-hour gusts, and it's moving north-northeast at about 5 miles an hour. It's going to basically swing eastward through the northern part of Georgia and into the Carolinas, and they're predicting catastrophic flooding. Apparently, 500,000 people are already without electricity from all the branches blown down on the power lines from all the wind and everything. Earlier today, there was a standoff in Linwood, California, where they had tracked a carjacker into a home, and they suspected initially that it might the suspect might be linked to Saturday night's shooting of the two deputies. But unfortunately, when the standoff ended, they decided that no, he wasn't. So it was a little bit of a false alarm there. The suspect in the shooting of the two deputies is still at large. The reward is now up to $200,000 for information on his whereabouts, assuming he's not in a shallow grave someplace out in the desert. Meanwhile, somebody set up a GoFundMe page to help the two LA deputies, and they've raised more than $318,000 so far. All righty. Now, they finally got a suspect in custody after that drive-by shooting in Phoenix that wounded the officer outside the federal courthouse. And they've taken him into custody. So we'll find out what's going on over there. All righty, getting on over to the wildfires. And believe it or not, the haze and smoke is over us here in Indiana. It was even on the radio this morning saying, don't worry because the smoke is way up high, several thousand feet in the atmosphere, and it's not down on the ground, so you're not breathing it. And the wildfires are going to get worse. And the finger of blame is being pointed at the Clinton administration. This is coming from WorldNet Daily. Former President Bill Clinton made a significant change to federal land management nearly 30 years ago that created the conditions necessary for massive wildfires to consume portions of the West Coast, according to one fire expert who predicted the problem years ago. Shortly before leaving office in 2001, Clinton limited the ability of the United States Forest Service to thin out a dense thicket of foliage and downed trees on federal land to bring the West into what was called a pristine state. Bob Zyback, an experienced forester with a PhD in environmental science, in an interview with the Daily Caller, said the former president's decision created a ticking time bomb. Facebook has announced they're going to remove all posts alleging the Oregon fires were started by certain groups. This despite the fact that there have been several arrests for arson. And like we had that video yesterday on the main page, Zoom meeting of the Klamath County commissioners, in which they say, yeah, there are extremists stockpiling gas cans to maximize the damage here. Turning to our political scene here, Joe Biden had a little bit of a gaffe here. Joe Biden debuted his speech to kick off Hispanic Heritage Month by playing a popular Spanish language song, Despacito, which means slowly. And he got mocked for it. The entire title of the song is I Want to Breathe Your Neck Slowly. And his campaign admitted he's got some work to do with Latino voters, and they were very upset by his choice of tunes here. Great moments of magical thinking. Biden is out there promising fewer fires, floods, and hurricanes if he wins the presidency. Joe, you're running for president, not God. Amazing what that guy's out there. Joe Biden slips up during the campaign speech Tuesday. Democratic nominee for President Joe Biden seemed to forget who was running for what, referring to his ticket as the Harris-Biden administration. Biden made the slip up in Tampa, Florida, while attempting to attract Latino voters and military members disappointed with President Trump. It makes it so much harder for military spouses to find good jobs and build their careers, Biden said. That has to change. A Harris-Biden administration is going to relaunch that effort and keep pushing further to make it easier for military spouses and veterans to find meaningful careers. This only a few days after Kamala Harris made a similar gaffe and referred to the Harris administration regarding her economic policies. So President Donald Trump questioned why former Vice President Joe Biden used the term Harris-Biden to describe his presidential ticket. Harris, who he today, and Harris-Biden because he thinks she's president. Someday you'll have to explain that one to me. Well, I think what's going on is that everybody pretty much understands that Biden is really not suited for the Oval Office. And if by hook or by crook, mostly by crook, he wins in November, that he is expected to step down almost immediately. So the question you want to ask yourself is, do you want Trump or Kamala Harris as president? Joe Biden is out of the equation at this point. It's pretty obvious. So you have to, when you're deciding who you're going to vote for, realizing that you're voting either for Trump or for Kamala Harris. And remember, Kamala Harris did not do very well in the primaries. She's not popular among Democrats here. So Trump commented on Biden's statement during a town hall with ABC News anchor George Stephanopoulos on Tuesday evening. All righty. Now, Biden is gearing up to contest the election. He's creating a new legal team of former solicitors general and hundreds of lawyers in preparation for battles over how people will vote, how ballots will be counted during the coronavirus pandemic, and any challenges to the vote on election day. This is going to be Florida 2000 all over again. It's going to wind up in the Supreme Court. Wayne Dupre is out there saying Kamala Harris administration gaffe has revealed the Democrats' true plans. The left-wing VP candidate might try to dismiss it as a slip of the tongue, but her comment shows what the real scheme is, that she replaces Joe Biden shortly after the election. And I see the hand of Hillary behind it all. Whether it was a slip of the tongue or a Freudian slip by Kamala Harris, when she mentioned a Harris administration during a Q&A yesterday, her answer raised eyebrows. It gave legs to the reason why critics of Joe Biden will forever call the Democratic presidential candidate a puppet leader until Election Day. Harris quickly corrected herself using the term, but it didn't appease Trump's supporters. Harris has been repeatedly associated with being nothing more than a Trojan horse for the radical left. By the way, a listener called in and corrected me. It's Clackamas County, not Klamath County, where that commissioner's Zoom meeting talks about the gas cans being stockpiled here. Okay, over in the House, GOP Congressman Andy Biggs from Arizona has just filed a petition asking for the indictment and removal of Nancy Pelosi. Now, Biggs has been a hater of Pelosi since inception. Nancy Pelosi lies has taken America backwards, and the whole country will be in big trouble. The time for Nancy Pelosi to resign is now. She's no longer capable of leading this country. It's way past time for Pelosi to leave her office as Speaker of the House, Mr. Biggs said. He also called upon our leaders in Congress to put forward the motion to vacate the chair that has been prepared and merely needs to be brought to the floor. Well, Pelosi's not going to let that happen. Article coming on out of the Federalist, and it's talking about how the media was pushing this unverified gossip to hide Trump's amazing economic and foreign policy achievements. Just hours before the official Bureau of Labor Statistics report on Friday morning, The Atlantic ran a story based on anonymous sources alleging that President Trump disparaged fallen U.S. soldiers during a 2018 trip to France. The claim was absurd, and Jeffrey Goldberg has now gone public saying that, yes, the story might be wrong. But officials and staffers who were there with the president on that journey and actually willing to identify themselves emphatically challenged the story. Even well-known Trump antagonist John Bolton debunked the Atlantic's ridiculous account, and ridiculous is the way to describe it. Realizing that casting doubt on the president's patriotism was a losing battle, on Sunday, the corporate press moved on to another smear campaign, this in time to hijack the Labor Day news coverage. In a lengthy essay, the New York Times blasted President Trump for allegedly being inconsistent with his approach toward China while building up Democrat presidential nominee Joe Biden as some sort of born-again anti-China hawk. Trump is now calling Watergate reporter Carl Bernstein a total nut job after Bernstein branded Trump a homicidal president organizing homicidal assemblies. So Bernstein slammed Trump as a homicidal president who was hosting homicidal assemblies with his indoor campaign rallies amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, Attorney General Barr is calling the mainstream media basically a collection of liars, and he's certainly correct on that one. Turning to our protests/riots, and it seems like the majority of people now see them as riots, the majority of Americans who have seen anti-police violence in their community are turning to Trump. That's what polls are showing. This has been a disaster for the Democrats. And that's why Biden all of a sudden is out there with a whole bunch of commercials trying to make it look like he's going to be tough on the protesters. All righty. Apparently, there's been another incident where Black Lives Matter mob harasses white people eating dinner at an outdoor restaurant. This was in Philadelphia, and they were caught on video harassing white people eating dinner at this restaurant. Bad for the brand, people. It is bad for the brand. Now, the Department of Homeland Security has overwhelming intelligence that the nightly violence in Portland, Oregon was organized by members of Antifa. An email obtained by CBS News reporter Catherine Herridge by Brian Murphy, former acting Undersecretary for Intelligence and Analysis at the Department of Homeland Security, said in July that the violence had reached a level at which it could no longer be classified as opportunistic. Murphy said the violence was organized by individuals with an ideology categorized as violent, Antifa, anarchist inspired. All right, President Trump official is warning that left-wing hit squads are being trained across the country as the globalists maneuver to complete their worldwide takedown. And apparently, this top health and human services official working for Trump has warned of these hit squads being trained to carry out an armed insurrection if President Trump wins the election. Now, while the corporate media jumped on the story and claimed it was fake news, Americans should make no mistake about it. The globalist Democrat enemies of America would never, ever tell us if they're about to launch an extermination campaign against the American people. And there have been several articles today, which we linked to whatreallyhappened.com, where people are prognosticating that there's going to be incredible violence after the election, and it almost doesn't matter which one wins or loses here. Now, Black Lives Matter is bringing so-called protest parties to Trump supporters' home. Their Facebook account is still active, despite repeatedly posting the addresses of conservatives. So this is up in Milwaukee, and on Tuesday evening, a Trump supporter was arrested for holding a shotgun by the window of his own home as it was surrounded by a mob of far-left lunatics. And it turns out it wasn't this group's first time showing up at the home of a random person to protest and intimidate. On a Facebook page called Justice Tour 2020, Vaughn L. Mays, a man who describes himself as Milwaukee's Malcolm X, has been posting personal information on Trump supporters. The page is littered with people's phone numbers, addresses, and calls for crowds to show up at their homes for protest parties. Facebook is showing a real bias in terms of who they're banning and who they're not. Tucker Carlson is blaming the Democrats for the ambush on the LA deputies because they tell people cops are evil agents of racist genocide. And Carlson has blamed the Black Lives Matter movement for the shooting ambush on 2 Los Angeles sheriff's deputies over the weekend, claiming that anti-police rhetoric prompted the attack. That Milwaukee man who brandished a shotgun inside a window of his home to scare off the Black Lives Matter supporters has been arrested for brandishing a gun. And once again, we're seeing how people who are trying to defend their homes against these mobs are being targeted by the liberal justice system in this country. There's been another case here where a gun owner used pepper spray on an attacker and still got charged with assault. Didn't even use his gun. All right, more politics. Sean Hannity and Lou Dobbs to be deposed in suit over Fox's coverage of the murdered DNC staffer. 2 of the biggest names from the Fox Corporation are set to testify under oath in a lawsuit over a right-wing conspiracy theory that Russia did not hack the emails from Democratic National Committee that were released to help Donald Trump during the 2016 presidential campaign. Fox News star Sean Hannity was once his network's most prominent booster of conspiracy theories about murdered Democratic National Committee staffer Seth Rich, only stopping the rumor mongering after Rich's grieving parents publicly begged him to knock it off. A little bit of obvious bias in the writing of that story as well here. All right, Caitlin Johnston is out there saying that Democrats are ignoring the U.S. military's refutation of the Russian bounty story. Remember, a while back they came out claiming that Russia was paying the Taliban to kill U.S. personnel. And that story went all over the place. Oh, bad Afghanistan, bad Taliban and everything. But the U.S. military has been unable to find any evidence that Russia paid bounties on U.S. troops to Taliban militants, confirming what was obvious to anyone who hasn't had their brainstem hijacked by mass media-induced Russophobia. 2 months after top Pentagon officials vowed to get to the bottom of whether the Russian government bribed the Taliban to kill American service members, the commander of troops in the region says a detailed review of all available intelligence has not been able to corroborate the existence of such a program here. Iran warns the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain they will bear severe consequences after they signed a historic peace deal with arch foe Israel. Now, interestingly enough, the corporate media is dismissing this accomplishment because, you know, it basically shows Donald Trump with a very strong hand in foreign policy. But they're describing it more as a business deal that opens up trade and tourism and like that, and they're trying to downplay it. But it is historic. It is causing problems in the UAE and Bahrain and even in Israel. But Hassan Rouhani, the Iranian president, blasted leaders of the two Arab states over the deal and accused them of forgetting their debt to the Palestinian people. This is not entirely accurate because one of the provisions in the deal that was just signed is that Israel is going to cease any more annexations. Good luck enforcing that one, but that is in there as well. So Hassani is out there. How could you reach your hands to Israel and then you want to give them bases in the region? All the severe consequences that would arise from this are on you. In recent weeks, the Iranian embassy in Pretoria is involved in the plot, they told Politico. All righty. Pompeo vows the U.S. will never let Iran acquire Russian and Chinese weapons. Weeks ago, the United States lost its bid to get the UN Security Council to extend the international arms embargo on Iran, which will expire October 18th. And now, on Tuesday, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is vowing to never let Iran acquire Chinese and Russian weapons, but it remains unclear precisely how he's going to make this happen. Offer discounts on American weapons, maybe? I seriously doubt it here. Apparently, Trump's supporters in Jerusalem hold a march for Trump from the U.S. Embassy to the Old City following the Israeli peace agreements with Arab states. So it's a little divided over there in Israel. UAE official says U.S. mediation and assurance suspension of annexations will hold. The United Arab Emirates foreign minister said on Tuesday, the presence of the United States as a mediator of the country's deal to normalize relations with Israel assures him the suspension of further annexation of Palestinian lands will hold. Good luck on that one. I think you're being very, very naive here. During the White House ceremony on Tuesday, the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain officially established diplomatic relations with Israel. The signing of the U.S. brokered Abraham Accords formalizes decades of clandestine relations between Israel and the two Gulf states. U.S. President Donald Trump, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Emirati Foreign Minister Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, and his Bahraini counterpart Abdullah bin Rashid Al Zayani all spoke before the signing. Apparently, during this, there were protests and rockets over in Israel. Okay. For some reason, they made a big deal out of the fact that Mrs. Netanyahu and Melania Trump were dressed in matching colors. Whatever here. President Trump is once again warning Iran of retaliation if they assassinate a U.S. ambassador. And on Monday, reports emerged that Iran was considering assassinating the U.S. ambassador to South Africa, Lana Marks, as retaliation for the killing of General Qasem Soleimani. U.S. officials have been aware of a general attack on the ambassador since spring, but the intelligence suggests the threat has become far more specific. Personally, I think it's Iran bashing. I think Iran would be very foolish to do such a thing. And again, we're just being flooded with propaganda to get us to hate the people the government want us to hate, whether it's Iran or China or Afghanistan or whoever. All right, we got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be back with more news after these few words. Yes, the gremlins are back there, and probably it's a good time to remind everybody that Republic Broadcasting Network is in the middle of a fundraiser. As you could tell from recent events here, we have a need to upgrade and replace equipment that's wearing out because we do put a lot of use on it, and we really do need your help. I mean, I even thought about putting Claire up on eBay to see how much bidding I could get on her. So the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number for a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. We're going to go ahead and take a phone call now from Joe in California. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. You know, Mike, I was thinking as far as this perpetual fundraiser on RBN, and in order to save Claire, why not start up your magician career again? Put on some shows in Santa Claus. You could make a fortune.
Well, I thought about trying to get a job over at Holiday World.
Too. I only asked for 20%. That's all.
Oh, okay. Only 20%. Well, my agent only got 10.
Well, what do you think?
Believe it or not, I gave away or sold all my magic props when we left Oahu. All I've got left is a deck of cards.
Okay. All right. Mike, we got a very volatile situation, as you may know. You may have noticed in this country. I'm wondering, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, how many servicemen, I'm not talking about weekend warrior National Guard, how many servicemen do we currently have in country?
I actually do not know that number, but it's not a lot. It's certainly not compared to like China.
So why, under these volatile, very unstable conditions, do we have our service men and women defending a very wealthy South Korea, whose economy is at least, I've heard, 50 times greater than that of North Korea? Why are they in Europe? Why aren't they here? Or at least a big chunk of them here in the U.S.?
Well, remember, the regular military are banned. The regular military are banned from operating on the streets of America under posse comitatus. The only exception to that are the Marines.
Okay, because I have read, and I've also heard on True News, sometimes True News, they go a little bit overboard, but in fact, they were talking about, I don't know if you heard the story about this Michael Caputo, who just recently stepped down from his position. He was talking about a leftist insurrection, and I can actually see that happen. If Trump wins, even Trump wins in a landslide, and the Democrats do concede, I could see that happen, where they're ambushing police, they're attacking government buildings with Molotov cocktails, or even more advanced modern equipment that I'm sure they've been given. Because according to True News, there are camps all over this country where they're being trained.
Yeah, I've heard that too. You know, and I don't expect the Democrats to concede the election. Even if Trump wins in a landslide, they're not going to concede. They're going to, go for recounts. They're going to contest the election. They're going to drag it into the court system. And if they lose there, look at the violent reaction that followed Hillary's defeat in 2016 and imagine it multiplied by 10.
I mean, we just had those two sheriff deputies ambushed.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, but in many, Trump is he's definitely benefiting from all of this. But I don't want to see this continuing. This is just it's becoming terrifying.
Yes, it is.
I'm dreading the election. I'm dreading what things are going to look like in November.
Yeah, I agree. My
neighbor, this older gentleman, he was asking me about buying guns. He's like, he's afraid that his house will be in danger.
Oh, gun sales have gone through the roof. In fact, the FBI's background check system broke down from the load.
I don't know. I just feel like Trump. I think things have gotten things have gotten completely out of hand. But I think he should have acted months earlier if he does plan to act. I know Milley and Esper. They were against him, against any idea of using the military, or even using the National Guard. But this has just gotten completely ridiculous. I mean, this is the United States. We look like a banana republic, third world nation.
Well, you remember how early on, they kept pushing the idea that these were all peaceful protests out there. And I think the trap that was set for Trump was that if he went on in and he sent in the National Guard or the military or whatever, the Democrats would denounce him as a dictator. Anyway, Joe, we got to let you go. We got to take another break here for commercials. We got more callers waiting on the line, 800-313-9443, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Joe in Tennessee. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, I'm your third Joe of the day here.
Yeah, I noticed. We got to start a club for you guys.
Yeah, I wanted to get the third in a row, but they had some other guys there, but that's all right. Trump made a tweet yesterday about the Drudge Report, which has become pretty much unreadable. It definitely has a leftist bias now, and I don't know why, but he at the end of his tweet, he said, everybody's leaving Drudge and they're going to Revolver News. And I'm like, well, I never even heard of Revolver News. I figured, I'm pretty clued in. So I went there, and I was pretty surprised because the site that Trump is recommending is very populist. I mean, I got to say, going through it, I was like, George Bush, Romney, none of those neocon-type Republicans would ever recommend a site like this. I mean, they've got stories about George Soros and Black Lives Matter. And, I mean, I recommend any of your listeners to check it out, Revolver News. I checked it out. I've never seen it before. So it was interesting to me that the President of the United States would recommend a site like this because it's definitely not too much of an establishment type site. It's more populist, and it tells me that maybe Trump is not just spouting populism. Maybe he believes it, which would be a good site. I mean, if the President of the United States goes to this site every day, I'd be happy because he's going to get some news stories and some information that he's not going to get through the other establishment channels. So,
okay, Joe,
I'm very pleased by that. Yes.
Joe, can you give us the exact URL? Because I went to revolvernews.com and it was a gun site.
How do I get those? https://www.revolver.news. That's it.
Oh, revolver.news. Okay, that was my mistake.
Yeah, so anyway, you go there and say, remember, this is the President of the United States. Now, he's not going to be able to give a site like Daily Stormer or something about Zionism. So if you expect I know a lot of your callers call and criticize Trump because he's such a big Zionist, but you're not going to really get anything, which would, personally, I don't think it would be smart of him to do that because that would just get him in a lot of trouble. But I think, as far as nudging people further to the right, this is a good site for that, and I'm very pleased that the president would recommend a site like this, personally. I've been thinking about, over the last 3 years, 3.5 years, a lot of your callers and what the major complaints have been, and I'd say they fit into the one of three categories. One, like wars, generally, just in general, war and peace. And I think Trump, for the presidency, has done a good job. I mean, I wasn't happy about his bombing in Syria, but I was happy that he notified them and the Russians that was going to happen. And I wasn't that fond of them bombing Soleimani, but he was in Iraq, so that they didn't. It's not like he bombed Iraq. So I used to give Obama credit because he kept us out of a major war with Iran, and I can't say that Trump has done a good job as far as any major wars. No war with North Korea, Syria, and a lot of things have quieted down, actually.
It does seem like they're quieting down, especially in Afghanistan. Joe, we're going to have to let you go. We got to take a break here for station identification. We'll be back with hour number 2 after these 2 words. Sorry about that. I had wrong button there. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And apparently, according to this article in Sputnik News, a THAAD battery in Guam proved helpless against spotlight-armed swarming drones, according to a report. Now, the military deployed the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Anti-Missile System to Guam's Andersen Air Force Base in 2013 in response to the perceived danger posed by North Korean intermediate-range ballistic missiles. In July, U.S. defense officials confirmed the system was also purposed to handle the threat from China. Now, apparently, drones outfitted with bright spotlights came from the sea and swarmed over the massive U.S. Pacific military installation on Guam, spying on base assets, including the THAAD battery stationed on the island, citing Air Force data obtained through a Freedom of Information request. The incursions were said to have taken place between March and April of 2019, with the roughly 3 by 5 foot quadcopter style drones flying just 20 to 30 feet above the ground and spotted repeatedly in the early morning hours by troops manning guard towers near the area where THAAD was deployed. Well, flying that low is definitely one more way to foil what is essentially a high altitude intercept system. Apparently, over in Syria, a U.S. helicopter had a crash landing in Al Uribia town in the eastern countryside of Hasaka, according to local sources. The report quoted the sources as saying that a helicopter belonging to the U.S. occupation fell in Tal Haddad village in Al Yarubia town in the far eastern countryside of Hasaka, pointing out that 10 U.S. armored vehicles cordoned the village, and the wrecked helicopter was transported by another helicopter using iron chains. In addition, sources at the illegal U.S.-led coalition admitted the incident had taken place, but underestimated it and considered the crash of the helicopter was an emergency landing, and there were no casualties. Well, good for that here. Down in Venezuela, the Venezuelan Air Force has shot down a drug-laden U.S. plane. Apparently, this took place last July when with another plane with a U.S. registration number was shot down by fighter jets while intruding into Venezuelan airspace. Venezuela's military has shot down a U.S. registered aircraft carrying drugs, Interior Minister Nestor Rivero has announced. According to the minister, the incident took place Tuesday, with the aircraft downed after illegally entering Venezuelan airspace in the province of Zulia near the border with Colombia. Drug smuggling continues. All righty. Venezuela has also arrested what they describe as an American spy carrying machine guns, grenade launchers, and cash, claiming it's part of a scheme to sabotage the oil refineries. Venezuela's chief prosecutor on Monday said a U.S. citizen recently arrested in the country as a suspected spy has been charged in an alleged terrorist plot. Okay. Now, this next story is getting a lot of press, and I want to urge caution here, because when I read this, the first thing I thought of was that so-called Kuwaiti nurse who was telling everybody how the Iraqi troops were stealing incubators from Kuwait hospitals and leaving the premature babies on the floor to die, and it turned out to be a complete hoax, a fraud perpetrated by Hill and Knowlton Public Relations. So all of a sudden, very conveniently, when we need to bash China, a rogue Chinese virologist joins Twitter, Dr. Li Meng Yan, who claims that she has evidence that COVID-19 was created by a Chinese scientist in a lab and deliberately released to cause chaos all around the world. How very, very convenient for the China bashers. Twitter has now suspended the account of Li Meng Yan, and silenced her. Okay, let's talk about COVID-19. It's still out there, and we're still dealing with that recent CDC report that the masks really may not be all that effective against the virus anyway, because the size of the virus is so much smaller than the weave, even in the N95 masks. It's like trying to stop mosquitoes with a chain link fence. Anyway, American minorities, most with underlying health conditions, account for 75% of under 21s who have died of coronavirus in the U.S. This according to the CDC. Now, Trump is out there claiming that a coronavirus vaccine may be ready within 4 weeks, and he's claiming he's going to make it available for free to all Americans. And this, of course, is raising hopes, also concerns about how swift the U.S. approval for the vaccine is going to be. Now, the previous administration would have taken perhaps years to get a vaccine because of the FDA and all the approvals. Trump said on Tuesday, we're within weeks of getting it. You know, it could be 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Now, Joe Biden was on the air just a little while ago claiming that Trump has totally botched the coronavirus response and saying that a vaccine will not be ready until 2021. Apparently, some Wall Street banks have summoned traders and other employees back to offices, and their ability to enforce social distancing measures will be challenging unless human-like mask-detecting robots are deployed. Pepper is the robot designed by SoftBank Robotics, is the world's first social humanoid robot able to recognize faces and basic human emotions. They stand 47 inches tall. They use optical sensors and artificial intelligence to recognize if people are wearing masks or not. Well, that's easy enough to do. I've got an iPhone XR here with the facial recognition. Won't work if I'm wearing my face mask. CDC has admitted it failed to track coronavirus months ago. Most states were forced to abandon COVID-19 surveillance by June, according to leaked documents. CDC effectively gave up trying to keep track of coronavirus, admitting it failed to do so months ago, according to documents obtained by Forbes. Now, Bill Gates, who we understand is heavily invested in vaccine companies, does not think the FDA can be trusted with COVID-19 vaccines, and he says the agency has lost credibility amid the pandemic, which has undone 25 years of vaccination progress. Okay. Now, Big Ten football is back. Remember, they were going to cancel that because of COVID-19, but there was a huge backlash from the athletes and the fans, and they just earlier today voted to put it back in. In fact, it was just on Fox News here a couple of minutes ago. So the college football is going to proceed into the season here. All right, let's talk about the economic news here. Oh, wait a minute. We got a caller waiting on the line. Let's go to Don in Arizona. Hello, Don. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. I'm not exactly sure about what the laws are as far as using troops, but using American troops on American soil. George W. Bush used the 82nd Airborne after Katrina there. He had them down there in that area. Again, I was down there. In fact, I was in the same parking garage with the same area there as 82nd Airborne. I was in the National Guard contingent. And there was, they were there. So, and I remember at the time somebody told Bush he couldn't do it. He did it anyway. So I don't know. It's kind of like, of course, they were not firing bullets at anybody, but they could have been. I mean, they were supposedly, I mean, they were there to restore order when there was no order there for a while. But yeah, it wasn't exactly riot control. But
no.
There's the insurgency. I've heard there's the Insurgency Act. Trump could use the Insurgency Act and activate. He could use anybody he wants to. What I've heard. He could use the Army, the Marines, the Air Force, the Navy, or whatever. But I think he's waiting until the election's over. Right now, it looks bad for the Democrats because they're just they won't even use the National Guard. They won't use the cops. They won't. And their DAs in those states, like DAs release they release people immediately. They won't press charges, even if they these arsonists.
Yeah, there was that one guy they caught setting fires. They let him go with no bail, and he went out and set 6 more.
So they're looking bad, and I think maybe Trump's waiting until after the election, but he could activate. He could, if he had to, he could use more troops. Now, in this whole issue of using robots, that's getting, you know, that's what it's going to head to. Everything is, they're going to eventually use robots also as soldiers. They have already, the police already in Massachusetts already have robots, robot cops, robot dogs.
Yes.
And, what's going to happen eventually, I hate to say it for some of your listeners who believe in the Second Amendment, I believe in the Second Amendment too, right now. But eventually they're going to use robots to round up all the guns someday. And you can't, I mean, people will try to, I don't know, take a cutting torch to them or something, but you can't shoot you can't shoot them. They're probably made so they're resistant to all bullets.
Well, I don't know. 50 cal ought to do a number on them.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe a 44 Magnum might hit. But I mean, they're probably pretty much. I mean, they can make them as strong as they wanted to. They can make them armor quarter if they wanted to. So
Yeah, but that would really drive up the price.
Eventually, machines will take over, and the little guys like you and me, by that time, we'll be long gone, and we won't have to worry about it, Mike. Thanks a lot. I'll let you go. Thank you.
All right. Thanks an awful lot for the phone call. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Talking about the economy here. According to the New York Federal Reserve, Americans are again growing concerned about losing their jobs. Meanwhile, the Bank of International Settlements is saying the biggest crisis test is still to come with insolvencies. So they're out there stress testing the financial institutions to find out how they're going to hold up if there's a major disruption. The U.S. gross domestic product is on track for a 31% quarter over quarter. That is a major, major, major drop. Okay. August credit card spending is down 13%. From 12.3% in July. Mortgage delinquency and foreclosures soaring. We're in serious, serious trouble. Manufacturing halted, jobless claims skyrocket. 8 million landlords are facing foreclosure. Now, those landlords, they have mortgages too. Out in California, they're starting to use their streets as collateral to pay down the pension liabilities with debt. And so what happens when your state or city has massive unfunded pension liabilities, no direct access to the Fed's money printer, and can't tax your state any further because you're driving people out in droves? You take on more debt using whatever you can think of as collateral. Such was the case in West Covina this July. That's where I went to high school, where the city is paying off its $205 million debt to CalPERS by issuing bonds using its city streets as collateral, according to Forbes. The city of Torrance has done the same thing. It will issue $350 million in bonds using its streets as collateral as well. Both cities are using something called lease revenue bonds, which means Torrance and West Covina are each using these bonds to, in principle, lease their city streets to a special financing authority, which will pay the city the upfront money and then rent the streets back to the city for the 25-year term of the agreement. That does not sound like a workable plan. All right, we got callers waiting on the line. Let's go to Rick in Portland. Hello, Rick. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi there, Mike. I'd like to talk about the Blake shooting. Now,
Yes.
I noticed something a couple of days ago. I was just going through BitChute, and I came across an interview of his. But first, let's talk about ballistics for a second. All of us are familiar with 9mm and ballistic gel.
Yes.
I think that if I shot a block of ballistic gel that's as thick as I am, say 12 inches thick, 7 times in a row in the same hole and stuff, I would think that that would blow through the other side. Do you agree?
If you're shooting into the same hole, yes, it probably would. But we don't know that that was the case with Blake.
You're right. We don't. Okay, now back to Blake then. The interview is in the hospital. Okay, and since then I've been unable to find it, although I was able to find the video again on the Manning, excuse me, Reverend Manning or whatever he is, had a window of it on one of his programs one day. Okay, Blake there was he was moving around. Okay, first of all, he's a thin man. You could not see any bandages whatsoever. He's in his gown laying there on his back. Okay, he's laying on his back. It was the 26th was when he was shot. So he's laying on his back. He's moving both arms around, no problem at all. He's even patting himself on the tummy. Like I say, you can see no bandages whatsoever.
I thought he was shot at least once in one arm.
I could only see from about his elbows down, but he was clearly moving those arms, and there did not seem to be any problem whatsoever. As he moved around occasionally, you could see his face and stuff. He was not grimacing at all. As a matter of fact, he seemed really jovial and really enjoying the notoriety of the interview and stuff. He did not appear to have any IVs at all. Did not appear to be hooked up to any medical devices at all. And it just made me think. I did kind of a double take of it. I've been thinking about it, and I don't know what to think other than seemed awfully odd to me and stuff. And again, I would, we have to presume that, when you're standing with your muzzle up to somebody, I don't think the guns could be bouncing around. The cop probably had that gun almost in his back. It looked like to me. Now, I may be wrong. That's an assumption on my part. So anyway, next topic. Did you see the air quality in Portland today?
Yes, I did.
700 parts per million.
Yes.
Yeah, the EPA here says that hazardous is from 3 to 500, so 27, 5 times higher than what they consider hazardous. It is so thick out here. Black Lives Matters. You've seen all the fires around here. I have been digging into that since I'm not working these days, and I found probably almost a dozen people who have been arrested in Oregon on alleged arson charges, a couple up in Washington, and about half a dozen or thereabouts in California. I'm not really looking for them, but I keep stumbling across them. Lots of indications like that. You've seen the picture, of course, of the people telling them, stay off our property, stay off our road, stay out of our area, or else we've got guns, etc. That's really happening here. And let's see. Any questions you got about Black Lives Matter? Since I'm about half a mile away and I see it all every night. I'm in between all 3 buildings where they've been rioting. You can hear it all. You can hear the helicopters, hear the flashbangs, hear them going through the neighborhood, chanting and all their nonsense, a bunch of juvenile children. If not, I will let you go.
Okay, well, just stay safe and, keep your head down. Must be nerve-wracking to be that close to it.
Well, it's going to be scary with the election. These people are going to go nuts, and I wish I could get out of town. But they're going to go nuts. They're crazy. Everybody's a Nazi. Anything, everybody, if they disagree with you at all, you're a Nazi. It doesn't matter what it is, you're a Nazi and a fascist immediately. Yet when you ask them to define what a fascist is, they get mad and call you more of a Nazi. Anyway, have a great day. Enjoy the show. Thanks for taking my call.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Mo in Florida. Hello, Mo. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Michael. Keeping in mind your fund drive.
Yes.
I think I hope everybody that calls in gives some money. I'm going to call in tomorrow and give some. I mean, it's kind of hard right now for everybody, but
yes, it is.
You have a. Yeah,
but that's why we hate asking. We know everybody else is in the same straits that we are, but we have to ask.
No, I know it's very difficult for you, and but you got to do it, and it's just you got a great platform. But what I'm going to say, is everybody's talking about, like the last caller, the great caller, talking about Black Lives Matters and all this stuff, and it's all like minutia. But when you look at the whole thing, you get away from planet Earth and like you're looking down at it. Google knows what everybody's thinking in instant, in real time. In other words, if everybody was going to go light a fire tonight, or everybody's going to go buy a Cuban cigar tonight, they would go long Cuban cigars. So I think it's a good question for you, Mike, because you're very computer, you're a very computer learned person. And how do we have a chance with that? Because, if they already know what we're thinking ahead of time, it's like the world's brain is wired, together. And, unless you're using, I don't know, code or something, this very conversation I'm having with you is, nothing, over the, every conversation in the world, but they can concentrate this and they know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, well, they can spot the rising trends and, go to the stock market and make a bunch of money. As if they didn't have enough.
That's actually why I think Trump is, I think he's a shill. I know that's going to hurt a lot of people. I voted for him just because I hate, like you, the Hillary's just total pond scum. I mean, I don't want to insult pond scum, but it's just
okay, Mo, I got to put you on hold. Mo, I got to put you on hold. Don't hang up. We're going to come right back to you after these words from our sponsors. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phone to Joe in Nome, Alaska. Hello, Joe. Welcome. What's on your mind today?
Did you see that headline on Drudge with the supposed Trump ad, support the troops, with the picture with the Russian jets in the background?
Yeah, well, I didn't see it, but I heard about it.
Neither Drudge nor Politico that reported the story deigned to mention that those were Russian troops in that picture too. And I had as Claire would put it, a palm to forehead moment. I'm going, finally, Russian collusion.
Yeah, I think somebody got inside and, pulled a whammy on Donald Trump's campaign with that. I can't imagine his campaign making a goof like that.
Well, okay. Hey, that story on Venus, I needed a last word on that because that's totally Velikovskyan.
Yes.
You had, a planet or a moon that had life on it, and it made a close approach to Earth and got scorched. At any rate, you'd have those same molecules in that atmosphere.
You mean the phosphine?
Yeah.
Well, it's in our atmosphere because we have life on this planet and industrial activity, which is a sign of intelligent life. And, it's great that everybody's excited over the life on Venus, but I'm wondering why we can't get people excited about life on Mars, especially after what we found on Viking back in 1976.
Well, I'm board with you there.
Okay.
I had that stuff on my website back in the 90s. And yeah, we agree on a lot. But, with Joe down there in Cali, I'm in total agreement with him, okay? But you see, in my case, it's been a long time building.
Yes.
And it'll be a long time forgotten. And this is why it's history rhymes. Is because it's the artists, that come up with the metaphors, and the metaphors turn into rhymes, and that's what's remembered because they can't say the truth, or often it's too difficult to explain in a rhyme. At any rate, that was kind of encapsulating what I started out talking about yesterday. So,
okay.
Have a nice day.
All right, thanks an awful lot.
Bye.
We're going to switch over to David in Boston. Hello, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Michael. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Okay?
I can hear you fine. You're on the air.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm on a train. Hi. I guess the guy sent you an email yesterday about my call. I couldn't believe how I was misconstrued by him. How he ever equated my call supporting the righteous cause of the oppressed Palestinian people, occupied Palestinian people, with Black Lives Matter. I condemn Black Lives Matter. I support innocent Black lives, but I condemn the Marxist Black Lives Matter organization. I just happen to make the parallel between that they neither the Intifada or this uprising here in America with people in Black Lives Matter that. The thing they have in common is they mostly throw projectiles, just rocks and bricks and maybe in a Molotov cocktail. That's the only thing. How he drew the conclusion that it got me wondering, Mike, is that the type of thing that you talk show hosts refer to sometimes as a troll, someone who trolls,
Yeah, trolls or shills, and we get a lot of them.
Yeah, because it's hard for me to believe someone would be that stupid. It almost seems like he intentionally, completely mischaracterized my call. But hey, listen, I've been thinking about that term, people being Palestine, and I was thinking of Senator Paul Wellstone from Minnesota, the only senator, and of course he was a Jewish American, a great man evidently, and he was the only one who voted against Daddy Poppy Bush's invasion of Iraq, and I believe he was Palestine. Then I think we can go back to CIA Director William Colby. I'm pretty sure he was Palestine. And then we have Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Jeremy Knight Porter, and I'm pretty sure he was Palestine. And then, Mike, it gets kind of, this is almost humorous and everything. It's kind of ironic, but actually, when Yasser Arafat and Yitzhak Rabin shook hands, and they were afraid peace might break out and everything, I think the both of them were Palestine. I think, ironic enough, I think probably Yitzhak Rabin even was Palestine, along with, they say Yasser Arafat stuff, it was under very mysterious circumstances. And I was thinking, even the old Saddam Hussein, I think was Palestine. And then I got a good laugh. God got a good laugh out of me. I know you don't believe in him, but God said, you know, Jesus Christ really started something, didn't he? With this being Palestine.
Yes.
Jesus Christ, he really started something, Mike, you know? You know, and even if he was just, as they say, a Galilean revolutionary or whatever, if he thought of, there probably was at the very least, there probably was a man, a humble carpenter, Galilean revolutionary that was crucified. But he really started something, Mike, you know?
Yes, he did.
But, yeah, then I think, Mike, that even and of course you can relate to this because we're about the same age, but I think the heroes of the hippie era, like Jim Morrison and Janis Joplin and Ricky Nelson and Jimi Hendrix, and they were scared to death that I got to get off there. They were scared to death that peace was going to break out. So they had to be Palestine, like all our heroes, you know, back in the peace movement and peace and love movement and everything. So I'm sure if we all put our heads together, we can think of just hundreds and even thousands of people who've been Palestine. And there's a lot more people that are going to be Palestine. And people like CIA Director James Woolsey, he became such a servile sycophant of the Zionist state and everything because he didn't want to go the way of William Colby, CIA Director William Colby. So that's why he became such a servile, you know. But I'm sure somebody else is going to be Palestine really soon, you know. And so I don't know. It's just giving us a harvest of death. This Zionism, Mike, it has to die because if Zionism doesn't die, this harvest of death is just going to continue, and we just can't allow that over my dead body. This harvest of death with Palestine and all these people, not to mention all the innocent people, of course, that are killed. The millions of you know, even Madeleine Albright's with half a million Iraqi children that died because they couldn't even get medicine to stop their diarrhea. I mean, they were all Palestine. Yeah. So, but anyways, Mike, I'll let you. I just can't believe how that. I think he must have been a troll because no one could be that stupid to think that. And anyone that's ever heard my calls, I can, as I say, I condemn Black Lives, the Marxist Black Lives. I support all the innocent Black lives, Mike. That's why I stand up for Jacob Blake. He might have just been reaching for his license and registration. I mean, how the heck do we know? But whatever was going on, he didn't deserve to be shot in the back 7 times like that. They could have shot out his tires and in front of his children. I really stand up for innocent Black lives, but I condemn Black Lives Matter as an organization.
Yes.
But thanks so much, Mike, for taking my call. Okay.
You got it.
I'll continue to listen to the rest of the show. Aloha.
Aloha. Thank you very much, David. We're going to switch over to Glenn in Philadelphia. Hello, Glenn. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I wanted to be first to the auction to place a bid of $1 million for Claire.
Well, I'm sure she'll be very flattered, but I'm afraid that whole idea has already been vetoed by the boss.
Oh, because all she'd have to do is divorce you, move to Pennsylvania, marry me. I'm still kind of working on the financing, but I'm assuming that'll go through without a hitch. Then Claire and RBN would be sitting pretty. But don't you worry. I've got a female neighbor friend who's putting in a bid of $25 for you.
Okay. Well, that's certainly more than had been bid for me before.
All right. Just so it could all work out. So just make sure you get up there, and I'll tell you, I'm just afraid I'm starting a bidding war that I can't,
Well, like I said, the whole idea has already been vetoed by the boss.
Oh, darn. All right. Well, thank you.
All right. Thanks an awful lot here. And we're going to switch over to Don in Arizona. Hello, Don. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Don in Arizona, are you there? We lost him. And let's go over to Nathan in Northern California. Hello, Nathan. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hi, Michael. I called in a couple of weeks ago and talked about Kenosha, Wisconsin, the shooting there with the kid on the street.
Yes.
Did you get a video from me? About that 2 weeks ago.
I think so. Yes. And
yeah. Well, it
yeah.
wasn't under my name, but yeah. Now, did you see the director?
No, I didn't see that.
Well, then you didn't get the video then.
No,
Anyway, well, let me describe again what I'm talking about here. The first thing you do is to screen capture an event. Then you put it into your movie maker. Now, the best example that I can give you as to how to do this is how truthers expose some of these hoaxes. There's a video on YouTube about the Boston bombing. So what you do is you punch in Boston bombing and then click it, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And then a whole bunch of videos come up, and it says, about the 10th one, it says, never before seen videos show Boston Marathon explosions in bombing trial. Now, in this video, they describe a sporting goods store and the window being blown out.
Yes.
So you screen capture the window being blown out. Then you put it into your movie maker and you run it at half, 1/4, or 1/8 speed. Now what you see is the glass is shattering, but you can still read the writing on the window. And there is no glass on the floor. So this is fake CGI, okay? It is totally fake. I mean, it's just another aspect of the Boston bombing.
What doesn't make sense is if somebody's going to fake a shot like that, why have the glass come out, which implies the explosion was inside the sporting goods store, as opposed to having the glass cave in? And
I don't know, but it's the wrong type of glass too. I mean, they have weathered glass or layered glass for store windows, and this is just like regular glass from a house. I mean, they got it all wrong.
All windows are layered glass. Some are, some are not.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, really.
Well, regardless,
I mean, it's mandated. It's mandated for cars, for windshields and stuff, but it's not mandated for storefronts. And it is very expensive. And so whoever built the building probably said, we're going to go with the lower cost.
Well, you can still read the lettering on the window, and you don't see any glass on the floor. I mean, that was a whole fake explosion. And what I wanted to tell you is that do that same method with these LA police officers, okay? And what you're going to see is that you don't see any muzzle flash from the gun. You don't see any smoke. They got the wrong angle of the guy. He's got his shorts down to his ankle. It looks like it was done by a 14-year-old whacked out of his mind on weed. I mean, and a 1980s surveillance camera. I mean, this LA shooting, of these deputies looks so fake when you slow it down and you really look at it and you see his arm extend about 1.5 feet. And it's just like, my God, can't you people do any better than that? So I just wanted to tell you that, what I think is going on is Obama, Soros, they are staging these shootings. They are getting you to believe that these things are happening when, maybe not everything, but quite a few things are fake. So that's
we know quite a few things are fake. Certainly the Boston bombing was a fake. And
yes, it was. It was just a couple of puff bombs. Yeah,
yes.
A couple of puff bombs with amputee actors and red fake blood, and we can go on and on and on about it for about, 2 hours. The last thing I wanted to say, and I'll get off, but Jim Fetzer has wanted to use a couple of my clips in this get-together that's coming up in October in Austin, Texas. You know, it's Question Everything. And I just wanted you to know I've been making part-time truther videos since Sandy Hook. I've had videos on YouTube that have reached over 60,000 views. And, you know, this isn't my first rodeo doing this kind of stuff. I mean, I've been around the block, and I've seen all kinds of fakery, and I've discovered all kinds of fakery, and it's just disgusting what they're doing. And you know, people want to believe it's real, fine. But I think Alex Villanueva is lying about these police officers being shot. They're just fine. And I better go before you kick me.
All right. Well, thank you very much here for the phone call. And, you know, we're going to disagree on some of these areas here and the methodology. But certainly we agree that the Boston bombing was definitely a false flag operation. And I remember seeing one of the explosions live on TV when it was first being reported and thinking it looked like a pyrotechnic shot like we would use in a movie. Anyway, we got to take another break for commercials. We got another caller waiting on the line. We'll be right back. And welcome back to our show here. And again, a reminder about the Republic Broadcasting fundraiser. And I get down on my knees, but it would take a chain hoist to get me back up. And, you know, a big thank you to those of you who've donated, and those of you who haven't donated. May frogs climb into your bedroom tonight and nibble on your fingers. Anyway, the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. Okay, we're talking with Mo in Florida. And Mo, if you could just sort of pick up where you left off.
Well, I was just, like I said, Mike, looking at the big picture, and I don't know how we counter something that is so far ahead of us. They already know what we're thinking.
Yes.
They concentrate this thing in these centers, and they know what. I don't care if it's the stock market or, you know, whatever. I think that's down the line. You know, if we were talking about, I don't know, eating burrito grass cured cancer, they would know it. And if it did, they'd be ahead of it. So how do we concentrate? How do we counter that concentration of worldwide knowledge? And, you know, I'm confused with that. You know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I get that. And it's a very dystopian view of, you know, the infosphere, if you will. And I don't know how we stop it or how we deal with it. I mean, other than to keep our private communications as private as possible. By the way, to all the listeners, our phone lines are currently full, so please don't get upset if you get cut off by the system because the lines are full. Just wait a few minutes and try in again. Anything else, Mo?
No, just like you said, if we were talking about cementing in their underground bunkers, they would know it ahead of time.
But they wouldn't know where.
I don't know about that.
I don't know
about that, Mike. All right, thanks, man.
All right, well, you know, we can put out a lot of disinformation. You know, we can all start saying that we're going to start buying lollipops, and Google will invest a lot of their money in lollipop futures, and then they'd crash. Anyway, thanks for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Jim in New York. Hello, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, hi, Mike.
Hi.
The previous caller before Mo was mentioning Antifa and Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind that they're the armed thugs of the U.S. government. Soros is the conduit through the intelligence agencies. But there's no other explanation that they're not prosecuted and arrested than they're working for the U.S. government.
Yes.
Barr knows full well who's funding them. And Peter in Los Angeles made a good point yesterday. He said Barr will not investigate because it'll lead to Soros and other powerful Jews.
Did you
So
see
I
that
think
thing on Fox News where Newt Gingrich said that Soros was behind all of this, and all those Fox News hosts just, awkward silence and no, we don't need to talk about George Soros.
exactly. They know who's funding it.
Yeah.
They know, Barr knows, but they're working indirectly for your own U.S. government, and it's a war against Middle America, particularly Middle American whites and their
Yes.
history. And if people haven't figured it out yet, I don't know what to tell them, because it's so obvious when these people should be arrested. Crimes, throwing Molotov cocktails, defacing statues, burning buildings. Where are the arrests? I mean,
Exactly.
Trump claims he's law and order. Where is it? Where is the law and order?
Again, I think the Democrats set a trap for him that if you send in the troops and everything, against the quote peaceful end quote protesters, they denounce him as a dictator.
Yeah, but it's such a thing as doing the right thing and not gaining political points, thinking it's going to help you in the election. When you do the right thing, those are our cities.
Yes.
That's another thing. I hear these jerks on the alt-right chat room saying, oh, let them burn their cities. Those are your cities. Those are the cities your grandparents built. Just because you don't live in them anymore, they're American cities. I think that's terrible. I have a real problem with a lot of people in the so-called alt-right in the chat rooms.
Yes.
Talking that way, saying, oh, let them burn their cities. They're Democrats anyway. I mean, what kind of attitude is that? Can you imagine? That's what kind of makes me hate the alt-right almost as much as the crazy left when they make stupid statements like that.
Yes.
And but no, Barr could have arrested these people long ago. But he knows what's going on. The federal agents, the agent provocateurs working for the government.
All right. Well, Jim, we've got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. More callers waiting when we come back from these two words. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phones to Sebastian in Sweden. Sebastian, thank you for waiting so patiently. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, hi, Mike. Now, I was just thinking about in Sweden, the increase of contactless card payments, have increased 57% now in Sweden. They pay with the card instead of using money because of the corona. Now, you don't have to punch any numbers. You just hold the card up to the machine. I'm sure you have it in the States as well.
Yes, we do.
And it makes your payment. So, and it's all because of corona. I think it was meant to, so they would take out cash from circulation. And now they're talking about negative interest rates from the banks now in Sweden. They talked about it on the news tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just, well, the coins are so terrible. Like the 1 crown and the 2 crown is magnetic. So I have a big magnet in my pocket, so they stick together, so you don't lose them. I mean, they're really, really bad quality. So I think it's a way of just saying, oh, you don't need them anymore, and we have to have a cashless society. And then another thing I want to talk about is I saw on the YouTube. There was a professor of history and something at some university in the States, and he has been, I don't know his name. He's a Jewish guy, but I forgot his name. Mm-hmm. And I can't find the link anymore, but he's predicted every presidential election since 1984, and he's hit it on the nose every time. And he's a Democrat. The last election, he predicted Trump. Right, and all these friends said, "Oh yeah, you can't do that." But he came by. But this year, now he's predicting Biden, and they have sort of 13 points of why, like charisma. I forgot them all, like the economy, and you have to get 7 of 13 to become, to be elected president, more or less. He's so that didn't sound good. I was really, oh wow. I mean, how could that be true? It's the only way they can be true is that if they cheat their way in, which they are probably going to do.
Well, we're seeing the preparations for that, and I think one of the reasons we had somebody write on in and say the reason they're saying the election results won't be available on election day is so they can figure out how many more fraudulent ballots they have to come up with for the mail-in ballots.
Yeah, but this media hype with knowing right away, it's just, I mean, here we don't know. Sometimes it goes on to the next day. They count the votes. They started counting them at 8 o'clock at night, and they count them usually at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. You know where it's going to swing. You know if it's got, if they have whether it's a really popular vote. But you really don't know until the next day because they still keep coming in more or less, correcting them and saying, "Oh, we have to count these ballots over." Of course, we have a paper trail here in Sweden.
Well, good for you.
For that, because I don't. Yeah, but anyway, and another thing I want to say before I leave, it's Joe from Tennessee. That thank you. That Revolver.news is really good. I bookmarked it. I it's
me too.
Strange that Trump is, yeah. And other than that, it's the same thing in Sweden with the burning cars and basically Black Lives Matter came to Sweden. The Swedish team that plays the handball. I don't know if you have a handball in the States, but it's like an indoor sport, and they're going to play Hungary, and they plan to kneel because of Black Lives Matter. And I'm not sure if there's a black person on the team. Could be because I don't really go that much for that kind of sport. Yeah. But I like to watch women's football, though. I mean, European soccer. That's pretty good. But anyway, it's just so much now. It's like everything comes from the States. It's like I don't know. When I came here, and it was different, completely different place. It's like night and day now. It's like night now. But
yes.
When I came here, it was like day in spring, and everything was nice, and you could leave a camera on the park bench and get on the subway and say, "Oh my God, I left my camera." Go back, it's right there. No one took it. Now you couldn't even turn your head, or you get it ripped off, from your shoulder. But it's that's what I want to say.
Okay,
what happened to Tom in Florida?
Haven't had him call in yet today.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, take care of yourself.
All right, I certainly will. Thank you very much. We're going to switch over to Peter in Los Angeles. Thank you for waiting patiently, Peter. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, hi, Mike. I just turned into that Revolver whatever. That way, that is a good site.
Yes.
Don, the other day, I called in and talked about the National Guard in Washington, D.C. Don from Arizona called immediately thereafter, and he's a National Guards. I never was a National Guards guy, and said that there was a National Guard. It seemed to me counterintuitive because it's the state militia, but
yes.
He was right.
Yes.
And the chain of command, just to make it clear, is some major general in the Pentagon, then the Secretary of the Army, and then and that's the chain of command. I want to also point out, however, that Milley this week again, Milley said that the Chief of Staff of the Army, Chief of the Joint Chiefs, said that the military was not going to intervene in any election, violence dispute, and also Esper had said that earlier, which I had brought up the point when I said that because that there were riots in the White House where they actually evacuated the White House, if you remember.
I remember.
We're talking about rioters, violent rioters, really, and we've turned out now that they've murdered in other places, and they've called the murder Trump in numerous times. But we're only talking about 100 yards away, masses of them from the White House. Trump wanted to call in the troops. You wonder where the troops were then, but they weren't there. But again, Esper is the Secretary of the Army's boss, and Milley is this Major General's boss, right? Mm-hmm. So you wonder what's going on. I just also sent you a what I thought was an interesting article to you, Mike. It was called, it was on redstate.com, and it's called The Adverse Effects of Obama's Executive Order 13583 and the
Yes.
Purge of Generals and Admirals are now obvious.
Yes, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, and the 13583 executive order was when he ordered the armed forces to institute that basically that training white people are all bad and we're responsible for all the evils in the world. The training that Trump just rescinded last week, and how negative that is, in effect, that has been. But also, and I know you remember because you talked about it when Obama started to sack all these commanders.
Yes.
Across services boundaries, right? All the services. But this really looks to me like a real stacked deck, and this has been a long time coming or setting up. But the other thing I wanted to comment, last one, is that Milwaukee guy, the gentleman in Milwaukee that simply had a Trump sign in his yard and
Yes.
had an armed group of terrorists coming. Really, they were terrorists. An armed group on his property, with megaphones and admitting they were armed. And he gets arrested.
He
What
gets
does that
arrested
say
for
about
showing
where
a shotgun.
inside his own home when people were
Yes.
armed on his own property?
Yes.
So it really, how close are we to civil war if that can happen?
It's feeling like we could really have a civil war in November.
Yeah, December at the latest. I've said that for months now, but
Yes.
December at the latest. But I mean, how close is that? If you just have the sign in your yard, and you get these armed mobs coming in and shouting you down, where's political discourse? And if there is no political discourse at all, and you're tarred as being racist for having that, for just having an opinion, what other alternative do people have? So,
we're running out of alternatives. As you say, the peaceful discourse is impossible. And what was it that the Kennedys used to say? When peaceful revolution becomes impossible, violent revolution becomes inevitable.
Inevitable and pending right
Yes,
now.
absolutely.
But anyway, that's it for me, Mike. I just wanted to raise those. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. We're going to switch over to Robert in California. Hello, Robert. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, a whole lot, Mike, but I'll follow up on your last caller, and I'll agree that the inevitable seems to be pending.
Yeah, I wish it were not so. Yeah. In fact, that was a big reason I've been doing what I've been doing for 30 years was to head off, the possibility of a new civil war, but looks like I blew that one.
You too? Hey, don't feel bad about it, brother. I've been trying on my own for a long time, waking people up in my own neighborhood, my own community. We all seem to, as conservatives, get so lost in the weeds with all these bushy-tailed details that are going on with the news. And I grant that a lot of investigation needs to be done. Getting down to the bottom of all these rabbit holes is certainly an important thing. But at the same time, I see a lot of people kind of glossing over on what the bigger picture analysis is presenting to us, the inevitability of what's about to occur here. And I don't hear a lot of people talking about that, Mike.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. I think people are scared of the big picture right now. I think there's a lot of denial going on where people are saying, this is all going to calm down. It's all going to go away. Everything's going to be just fine. And I can imagine that people who get caught up in civil wars or non-civil wars, it usually takes them by surprise. What do you mean we've got a war on our hands? That wasn't supposed to happen.
I'm really glad you bring it up that way, Mike, because, one of the biggest things that I'm seeing going on in our country right now is this cognitive dissonance, this willingness to distract oneself from the reality of what's going on, and it's not going to help anybody right now. It's part of what's caused everything that's going on is the fact that everybody has been willing to turn their head in the other direction and sacrifice their awareness for a false sense of security. Sorry to twist a phrase like that, but I think it applies.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Anyway, Mike, I really just wanted to call in and tell you how much I appreciate what you and Claire do. I look at your website quite often, the whatreallyhappened.com, and you are such a bona fide resource for information there. I encourage any one of the listeners out here, if they haven't already, they probably already go here on a daily basis, but just in case they haven't, I encourage everybody to check out your website at whatreallyhappened.com. And not only are there headlines up there that I can look at every day, but you've got that little top banner where I can do my homework just in case I showed up late to the party. And I can get really educated really fast. Well, not really fast. It would take a long time to go through all that. But I really hope that people utilize that resource. And I hope everybody's able to get their head up out of the weeds long enough to realize we've got some big problems coming here in November, and it does not matter who wins.
Yeah,
Biden can
a lot
win
of people
and
are saying
screwed.
that.
Yeah, no, if Biden wins, we're screwed. If Trump wins, we're screwed. Everything is getting to the point now. Have you looked at the national debt?
Yes.
We're a little bit screwed on that, too.
Yes.
So that's what it's coming back to with the bigger picture. All these things actually add up to a bigger plan that they've been implementing for a long time. And that's the thing that I don't hear anybody talking about.
Well, I think more and more people are talking about it. Like I said earlier in the show, I've seen several articles prognosticating about what's going to happen following the election. And like you, they say it almost doesn't matter who wins or loses because we're just being driven to this upheaval where they're going to try and remanufacture the United States into something very, very different. Of course, they could wind up crashing the whole thing, and then it would be up to we, the people, to decide where we're going to go with this country.
So can I ask you one last question before I go, Mike?
Sure.
Okay, so if everybody is hearing about the inevitability of this civil war, and yet nobody I speak to actually wants it to happen, why is this still happening?
Well, everybody has to agree for there to be peace, but it only takes one or two people with a gas can or a Molotov cocktail to get a war going is really the unfortunate aspect of it. And most wars are started by a very small group of people, and then they just sort of catch on and people get caught up and talk of patriotism. And if you ever get a chance, Mark Twain wrote a story called The War Prayer, and maybe I'll say again.
Oh, well, I was agreeing with you. Actually, I've read the War Prayer, and I would encourage you to bring up some of the details of that on your show. I think people need to hear it.
Well, I'll repost it to whatreallyhappened.com, and you can read it from there. And Mark Twain, when he wrote it, he demanded that it be published after his death because he said, I've told the truth in that, and in this world, only the dead can tell the truth. So anything else, Robert?
No, sir. I just want to congratulate you on all of the years that you've taken here to spread the truth out to us, because a lot of us have listened.
Well, thank you very much.
Anything
That's
you've
good
done
to
is
know.
done for naught.
Well,
Not a single thing you've done is done for naught.
Well, that's very, very reassuring. Thank you very much for the kind words, and we're going to let you go and switch over to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. I may have to take you through the commercial break. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Michael. Good day to you. Aloha. Yeah, Mike, it was great hearing Sebastian, by the way. He had a lot of good points, and so did Peter, and a lot of other callers are hitting great points. Yeah, Mike, what's on my mind right now is I just watched Don Jr. He was giving a speech at the Sportsman Society, I guess, in the United States, and he gave a really good speech, I thought. But here's what I want to talk about. First off, Peter was talking about what basically what's going to happen with the country as far as where we look potentially going to have a civil war, well, whatever the case may be. But remember, if Donald Trump loses, Donald Trump was the president, Biden would become the president, and that would be real chaotic in itself. But here, let me go back to there's a few things I got to weigh up my mind. First off, with the crime rate in Chicago, it's been going on for years. We all know that. And yesterday, Mike, Sebastian called. Not Sebastian. Kelly called in after Dustin had wanted to say he smirked me about something I said, I guess. And Dustin is never going to change his ways. He's in a state that he's always going to be, like you said, he's going to vote Democrat. He's not going to vote at all.
Okay,
so,
Tom. We're going to put you on hold. Don't hang up. I want to come back to you after these few words. Welcome back to our show here. Last segment of the program today here. We're talking with Tom in Florida. And Tom, if you could just pick up where you left off.
Yeah, Michael, I want to get back to what Sebastian had said about a guy predicting Biden could win the presidency over Trump. The guy also predicted it's probably going to win it by to a mail-in ballot, the mail fraud, and he also predicted China is going to be really implementing what's going to happen, not the Russians or any other, not the Zionists, but it's going to be the Chinese. They're going to be really behind the election of Joe Biden over Trump, also helping him to get elected with the mail-in false ballots that they're going to use. That's why this guy's predicting that Biden probably will be president over Trump, because of Chinese influence and the mail-in ballot. But now getting back to what I wanted to say about the guy Kelly called in yesterday, Dustin. You know, Dustin always throwing out a lot of your callers, Mike, about Trump. It doesn't matter if it's Trump, if it's Biden. Yeah, it does matter. It does matter big time, Dustin. If you want a bumbling imbecile like Biden, who already has, Kamala Harris already said it's going to be the Harris-Biden administration. So it's not going to be Joe Biden running the country, Dustin. It's going to be Kamala Harris, okay? Let's get that straight. It's going to be a chameleon running our country. Bumbling buffoonery Biden is not going to run it. And can you imagine all the scandals that the Republicans are going to hit with Hunter Biden, Mike?
Yes.
With the media? And I'm telling you, these filthy Zionists like Bloomberg spending $100 million to try to swing the state of Florida for Biden is disgusting. And all these Cubans here and a lot of Hispanics don't want none of this nonsense, Mike, because I already went through communism, just like the Venezuelans who were running away, fleeing there. They don't want to turn this country into communism. And as far as these imbeciles that call in saying that Trump hasn't done anything, what other president has done anything about immigration? Yeah, Trump maybe hasn't deported them all out, but at least he exposed them. He's got the angel mothers and fathers talking about murder, rape, and crimes committed by these illegal aliens. I mean, what other president ever did that? A scumbag like Bush? An imbecile like all these... even Ronald Reagan didn't do much about immigration, tell you the truth. That was the biggest mistake he ever made, and he even admitted it. So I want all you guys calling in about Trump doesn't do... Trump's done a lot more than any president I can remember, Mike, and I'm sure you feel the same way when it comes to a lot of issues. Let's not kid ourselves. These callers are calling this nonsense crap they pull is unbelievable. Yeah, he's not Adolf Hitler. He don't have the Aryan race, but come on, Trump has done a lot for this country, man. And all these people, blacks, have been making a lot of money off of Trump. The Hispanics. What other presidents gave them the wealth that they have? Now, you know, the countries we got this COVID nonsense 19. Nobody shut that damn government down, Mike, in 1968 with the Hong Kong flu. Nobody wore masks. Nobody is going out of schools that says, you know what, I'm paying taxes. I want my kid to go back to school. I'm fed up with it. These kids, all these people are paying taxes for what? The kids don't even go to school, and these teachers are making all this money? But what are they doing? Give me a break. It's all not democratic nonsensical stuff. And Mike, I got to tell you one more thing. Well, there's two more things. You know, I talked to a lot of these young college kids. You know what? They don't even know who the second president of the United States is, Mike, let alone who Abraham Lincoln is. They're nincompoops. They have dummied down these white kids and these black kids like imbeciles, fools. They don't know nothing about their country and their history. And they're going to tear our monuments down, these imbeciles?
Yeah, unfortunately, Tom, we're out of time. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to let you go. You can call back.
I'm not done with Dustin, Mike. I'm going to call him tomorrow because I want to get him straightened out. He's going to vote. Hey, millions of men went to battle, Mike, for this country. They gave you the right to vote.
All right. Well, Tom, thank you very much. We're going to let you go now here. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. I cannot stress how important it is right now that you help us through this very rough patch. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.